Hey, this is Glover Teixeira, UFC light heavyweight champion.
Hi, I'm Robbie Lawler.
What's up, fight family? This is your favorite MMA coach, Thiago Alves, the Pitbull.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Pedro Munoz.
This is Mike Brown.
Guys, I am Alexis and welcome.
And welcome.
And this is wewantpicks.
And you're watching We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
We want picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
Hi everybody from American Top Teams.
My name's Angelo and welcome to We Want Picks. And this episode is brought to you by BETU Play to Earn. It is the world's first play to earn sports and esports betting game. Check it out now at betuearn.com. That's bet, the letter U, earn.com. And if you don't know how to do it, check out the tutorial video on this channel. I'm going to walk through the final DraftKings insight, and I'll be honest with you, most of it is exactly the same as earlier this week. We have two changes, two small updates. One, Phil Hawes is out, and now we have Brendan Allen fighting Sam Alvey. And two, Steven Peterson missed weight. He missed weight versus Julian Rosa. Other than that, everything is pretty rock solid. I'm going to walk through the entire UFC Vegas 47 fight card. I'm going to give you my DraftKings picks and plays. We're going to let you know who is worth the money, who may not be worth the money, and what spots you will want to hold for some of these fighters. If you want $50 free, join our free DraftKings league and win. It's that simple. If you join our free DraftKings league and you win it, I will send you $50. The only catch is you need to be a member of this channel. So click the join button under this video, go to wewantpicks.com/DraftKings, join our free league. We have free contests every single week. And if you win the free contest, I will send you $50. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, $50 from me to you as a congratulations. Let's jump right in and take a look at the fighters. UFC Vegas 47 Hermansson versus Strickland. I've sorted this by price. So we have the most expensive fighters at the top, and we'll work our way down. The very first fighter, the most expensive fighter in the entire card, is Jailton Almeida. He has no statistics here because this is his official UFC debut. But if we go to his opponent, Danilo Marquez, we have a backdrop. Jailton Almeida is a nasty little grappler. He's a phenomenal grappler, always looking for something, always working something on the ground. He's got good come forward pressure, good striking as well. Danilo Marquez is also a grappler. His striking is like mediocre. The problem is he can't really hang. And if we look at this Kennedy and Chukwu fight, it's a perfect example. Danilo Marquez was dominating that fight. And then he got a little too comfortable striking, caught a big one, and then was put out. Where Jailton Almeida, I think he's a very good striker, but I don't think that's his path. I think he's going to work like a dog for those takedowns, get the takedowns, and then work his jiu-jitsu from there. The only concern here for Jailton, who I do think wins, is he is a submission over position guy, so he will put himself in weird spots to try and chase a submission. Danilo Marquez is a very accomplished grappler, and if Jailton gets a little too aggressive, overcommits to something, Danilo could end up on top or in a better position, win a round, potentially catch with a submission, which I don't think that would happen. So I like Jailton Almeida to win, but $9,400 is a steep price to pay. So let's see as we go through this list. That's somebody that I would have in my maybe bucket. So let's take a look at Brendan Allen, late replacement for Phil Hawes. This fight is at 205 instead of 185 now because of the short notice. Brendan Allen is coming off of that second round knockout loss to Chris Curtis. And what's interesting is they didn't score a takedown in that fight because he literally, if you remember, he had Chris Curtis up in the air, dumped him, but I guess they didn't score that. He had 18 points in that loss. I mean, he was straight up knocked out, pretty much cold. And that was just in December. So I don't know what that does for his chin. I don't know how long he was out before he got back into the gym and started training. This is at 205, so clearly he wasn't like in fight shape, which why would he be? But clearly he just was unwilling to cut down to 85. So I don't know what you want to do with that, but take that for what it is. But he is a $9,300. So he's a massive favorite over Sam Alvey. Let's take a look at what Brendan Allen has done in the past. When he beat Punal Soriano, he only scored 68 points. Okay, he was that was a pick'em fight. He should have been a big underdog, honestly, even though he won. 68 points. I'd be furious if I spent $9,300 and only got 68 points. He did submit Robertson for 111. He lost to Sean Strickland. He beat Dawkins. Now, that's a solid number there because he had a takedown, a bunch of control time. Sorry, a knockdown, some takedowns, and a bunch of control time. And then he had a couple finishes here, which you can't really go by the finishes. So, listen, Brendan Allen, I think he's going to have a really hard time taking down Sam Alvey. He may have some success with the striking. I don't think he's going to get a finish at all. So I'm not going to spend the $9,300. I think Sam Alvey's a really tough opponent. And let's take a look at Sam Alvey. And it's very easy to look at this and see all of these losses in a row. I mean, this is a lot of losses. 1, 2, 3, 4, then a draw, and then 2 more. 6 losses and a draw in his last 7 fights. I get it. That's not a good look. But there's so many split decisions in here. And he's so tough. Like, yes, Jimmy Crute stopped him. Nog stopped him. But he's a really hard guy to stop. He's got incredible takedown defense. He's got unorthodox striking. He hits really hard. And I'm not saying he's going to beat Brendan Allen, but I am saying that Brendan Allen is not a $9,300 fighter on short notice at 205 pounds against a really tough veteran like Sam Alvey, especially when Brendan Allen sometimes forgets that he's a grappler and starts striking with people. And Sam Alvey's got some power in those hands. Very unorthodox, so he's hard to keep up with at times. So, I don't know if I'm going to have Sam Alvey in my lineup, but I'm definitely not going to have Brendan Allen in mine. Julian Rosa fighting Steven Peterson. Julian Rosa, I like to call him a violent striker. He's a come-forward guy with solid pressure, and he throws everything with intent. He's trying to take your head off with every single punch and kick that he throws. Most of his success is at range. He does a pretty good job keeping you at range, but if he gets into a firefight, he has no problem being in a firefight. If you look at his fight against Charles Jourdain, yes, he scored 101 points. Yes, he won by submission, but he was losing that fight when he pulled that off. So good and bad. The good news is if he gets behind, he can pull it out. The bad news is he can get behind. And yes, Charles Jourdain's a good striker, a fun guy, but I wouldn't put Charles Jourdain at one of those super high levels in the division. He's fighting Steven Peterson. Steven Peterson's a really tough guy. He is a striker. He did showcase his submission defense when he beat up Chase Hooper a few months back. He is willing to take risks, and he has no problem making a fight ugly. But Julian Rosa also likes ugly fights. He relies on his chin quite a bit because he's very hittable. I think this is a really fun back-and-forth fight. I think Julian Rosa wins this fight. I do not think he should be a 3-1 favorite like the odds makers say he is. $9,200 is interesting because I do think he wins. I do think he wins, and we don't really have a decision win here outside of the win against Wurzek in 2015. And in that fight, he got a couple takedowns, had some control time, scored 82 points. That's probably what this fight will look like. So Julian Rosa at $9,200 is probably worth it. It's a lot of money to spend, but he probably wins. He definitely wins by decision, and there's probably a couple takedowns, some solid striking exchanges in the mix. Then we've got Dennis Bodnar with no stats because he's making his UFC debut, and he's fighting Malcolm Gordon. And this should be a fun fight because it is grappler versus grappler. Malcolm Gordon, BJJ black belt. Dennis Bodnar is more of a wrestler than a jiu-jitsu guy, but he does have very, very solid jiu-jitsu basics and a solid base. And when I say jiu-jitsu basics, that's not an insult. I'm not demeaning or I'm not taking away how dangerous he is on the ground, but his jiu-jitsu, he's not throwing up an X guard and doing crazy stuff. He will shoot a takedown, pick you up, drive you to the mat, and then work positions and maybe catch you in something, armbar, rear naked choke, very traditional submissions. I think Dennis Bodnar beats up Malcolm Gordon. I think Malcolm's the better striker on his feet, but Dennis is wild on his feet, which could throw Malcolm off. Malcolm's chin has been questioned in the past. I think Dennis Bodnar gets it done, gets the takedowns. I don't know if he's going to stop Malcolm Gordon. I don't think he'll submit him, maybe a TKO on top. But I think Dennis Bodnar wins a pretty dominant decision. So $9,100 is pretty solid. But Malcolm Gordon is an accomplished BJJ guy, does have solid experience as well. Then we've got Shavkat Rakhmonov and he's fighting Carlston Harris. And Shavkat Rakhmonov is the real deal. This guy is a very, very good fighter. We've seen him knock people out on his feet. We've seen him take people down and submit them from there. We've even seen him jump guard with a guillotine and pull that off. He's 14-0 with 14 stoppages, and he can win everywhere. Carlston Harris, he's a well-rounded guy. He's got pretty wild striking, but he does have power. And he's got solid grappling, and he's an opportunistic grappler. So he'll snatch something up if it's there in an exchange, in a scramble. He will grab something, and he'll stick with it. I think Shavkat wins. I think he dominates. Carlston Harris is tough. Carlston could, sneak out some rounds, make it competitive, but I don't see that happening. I do think Rakhmonov gets it done. It's pretty one-sided. I don't know if there'll be a submission in here, but I think it's a pretty one-sided win for Shavkat Rakhmonov. $9,000 is worth the price to play. Then we got Miles Johns, who, despite the fact that he only has one takedown, is a wrestler, short, compact wrestler, and he is fighting sexy Mexi Castaneda. And it's an interesting fight because Miles Johns, like I said, is a powerful wrestler who likes to come in, get takedowns. It's at the core of what he does, and he works, if he gets on top, TKO ground and pound. But these last two wins, these were not TKO ground and pounds. These were straight up knockouts from his feet. And that's actually what worries me here, is that he's going to get comfortable striking on his feet. He's got a couple wins now. He's feeling good about it. And he's not necessarily going to wrestle. And he's fighting John Sexy Mexi Castaneda, who is a really fun fighter. He comes forward. He's got solid pressure, sets a really nice pace, and then he shoots a bunch of takedowns. I think Castaneda is definitely the better striker, not as good of a wrestler or grappler, but if Miles Johns wants to hang around playing a kickboxing game because he knocked a few people out, I think John Castaneda gets it done. I think Miles Johns has way more power, but he's not going to be as fast or as technically sound as Castaneda on his feet. So I like Miles Johns to win. $8,900, that's probably a decent price because I think he's much, much better than Castaneda. The problem is his recent success with his hands. He may end up trying to fight with his hands, and then Castaneda will take over from there. And Castaneda is super, super tough. So I don't see a stoppage from Miles Johns. So $8,900, that's up to you. The only decision on here, which, is how I think this fight goes, 64 points. That's not terrible. It's also not great for $8,900. But I like Miles Johns, but Castaneda could be a solid underdog play. That brings us to the main event. We have Sean Strickland at $8,800. He's fighting Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson, very solid grappler. His stand-up's just okay, but he's a good grappler with a solid ground game. He averages a solid amount of takedowns, and he puts up some real points in his wins. In his losses, they're pretty one-sided because Jack Hermansson can be submission or bust. Sean Strickland just comes forward, throws a million punches. There's no hip rotation. There's no foot movement. He just comes forward and just throws straight punches over and over and over. And they have sneaky power on them because we've seen him drop people with jabs. I mean, Sean Strickland is on this nice little win streak here. 5 in a row. Only 2 TKOs in the mix, but still 5 in a row. But the most surprising win of all of them was his win against Uriah Hall, where he had 4 takedowns, mixed up the game plan a little bit, threw everybody for a loop. All of a sudden, he's taking Uriah Hall down 4 times. I don't see him doing that against Jack Hermansson because I doubt he'll want to be on top against Hermansson. But I'll be rooting for Jack Hermansson as a fan. I do think Sean Strickland pulls it off. With that being said, I think they're both appropriately priced. If you think Jack Hermansson's hands are good enough to hang and that he will get the takedowns and he will work from there, whether he wins by stoppage or not, then draft Jack Hermansson because he's affordable. And if you think Sean Strickland does what he did, let's not say Uriah Hall because I don't think he's going to get 4 takedowns. So let's just do Uriah Hall minus 20 points. So if you think he has that fight, so we're looking at 120 points, 110 points. You remove some of this control time. I think Sean Strickland's a solid value there as well. So you pick your side in that fight. I don't necessarily think there's going to be a stoppage. And if there is, it's probably on the Jack Hermansson side with a submission. Then we got veteran Alexis Davis fighting Julia Stollerienko. Alexis Davis is a veteran. She comes forward. She's a solid striker, mixes in nice combinations and gets it done. And you're saying, hey, Angelo, she's 1-4 in her last 5. Yeah, okay. She lost to Penny Kanziad, top 10 in the world. She lost to Viviana Araujo, top 10 in the world. Jennifer Maia, top 10 in the world. Caitlin Chikagian, top 10 in the world. She beat Carmouche, Dan Dois. Yeah, she lost to McMahon. Okay, Olympic silver medalist wrestler. Yes. Then beat Kaufman, lost to Ronda Rousey, beat Jessica Ai, Carmouche, Sexton. She is beating all of these women outside of the top 10, but losing to the ones inside of the top 10. Julia Stollerienko is not in the top 10. She's a solid grappler who has no wrestling. So I imagine Alexis Davis beats her up on her feet, works in combinations, gets some cage control. She might mix in some takedowns. I mean, her game plan against Mazzo was perfect. 3 takedowns, ton of control time, bang, 96 points. I don't know if she'll do that because Stollerienko is solid off her back, solid jiu-jitsu, can throw some things up. But even if they end up there, Alexis Davis is good enough to not get submitted, has the experience. She'll be fine. Alexis Davis wins. $8,700 is a fair price to pay. And we have Punal Soriano. He's fighting Nick Maximoff. This is striker versus grappler. Nick Maximoff is a straight-up jiu-jitsu guy. And he sticks to a jiu-jitsu game plan nonstop. His striking definitely needs a little bit of work. His takedowns, not great, but he will stick to them to get him to the ground. Punal Soriano is a striker. He's got solid combinations and very real power. He also has cardio issues. In that fight against Brendan Allen, he was first round or bust, and he didn't get it in the first round, so bust. He lost the decision. He was outstruck by grappler Brendan Allen, and then Brendan Allen went on to fight Chris Curtis, who knocked him out cold. So not to get too far off topic here, but the point is that Punal was outstruck by a mid-level striker because his gas tank was so bad. He's fighting Nick Maximoff. Nick Maximoff does have an okay gas tank. He's got no power in his hands. His takedowns are just okay. He's a jiu-jitsu or bust guy, but if Nick can survive the first round, he might be able to just shoot a million takedowns and exhaust Punal Soriano. So I still think Punal is the side here. I think he wins the fight. I think he recognizes how embarrassing his cardio was and works on that. But Nick Maximoff is one of these guys. He only has a few fights. They're all wins, and it's just hard to know what is he going to become. Is he very, very good, and this is just the beginning of something great, or has he beaten a bunch of bums, which, yes, and then he had that nice win on Contender Series at heavyweight, and now he's in the UFC for real at middleweight. So I think Punal wins. I think he wins. I think the power is real. His takedown defense is good enough. He just has to stay measured with his cardio. So I like Punal Soriano. If you want him in your lineup, you'll basically be chasing a knockout here because I don't know if this guy can win a decision with his cardio. Then we have Hakeem Dawodu, and he's fighting Mike Trizano, 2 really fun strikers. Hakeem Dawodu throws everything with solid power, heavy leg kicks, great hands, solid counter striking. He can move forward and counter strike at the same time. It's very nice. Mike Trizano, very good striker, very real power. He just coming off that win over Ludovic Klein, where he was a massive underdog, showed the world how dangerous he actually is. This should be a really fun fight. This will be a striker's delight to watch. I like Dawodu to win this fight. So Dawodu will probably be in my lineup at $8,500. But Mike Trizano showed the world that he's a solid underdog play when people count him out. So, $8,500, you got to spend it because there's not a lot of people that I love at the 9,000 price that you just heard me walk through. But I think his counter striking inside the pocket will be the difference here. I think if Mike Trizano exchanges in that firefight, Hakeem will just make those tiny adjustments left and right and then fire back, win those small exchanges to win the fight. And I do think he wins by decision. The problem is he does not put up huge numbers. He's not really getting these knockouts, and his volume isn't good enough to really put up numbers in DraftKings. So that's why it's so tricky at 8,500. I do think he wins, but we're going to need to see a little more volume than 66, 69 significant strikes to truly make that worth it. We got Phil Rowe fighting Jason Witt. Phil Rowe is a solid striker with good jiu-jitsu because he's so long. He has a 10-inch reach advantage in this fight, and he does use his reach advantage on his feet. He's a good technical striker, can keep people at range and get things done. He can also be taken down and held down and beat up from there, and I like Jason Witt to do that to him. So if we come into Jason Witt, I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as 8 takedowns like he had against Brian Barberena, but I do think there's takedowns in here. I do think there's control time, and I think he avoids the striking exchanges at all costs because his chin is suspect, as we saw against Semmelsberger and Sato. I like Jason Witt to win this fight. I will have him in my lineup. I will be biting my nails when every round starts on its feet because a crack or two from Philip Rowe could be a problem. Then we got Treyson Gore making his official UFC debut. He's coming off the Ultimate Fighter, so no statistics for that. And he's fighting Brian Battle. Brian Battle coming off the Ultimate Fighter win. This fight should have been the Ultimate Fighter finale, but Treyson Gore was injured, so he was out. And then Gilbert Urbina stepped in on short notice. Gilbert Urbina was winning that, or did win that first round against Brian Battle. Looked good in the second round until he just completely gassed on the wrong side of a scramble. And then Brian Battle got it done with the come-from-behind submission win. It wasn't late third round. It's not like he was getting beat on for 14 minutes and made it happen. Brian Battle was losing that fight. The striking exchanges and the grappling exchanges, he did show us he's very capable on the ground and that he's not going to quit on himself in any of these fights. And that does make him dangerous. And when we're talking about guys like Brian Battle or Treyson Gore who only have a few fights, we're talking about a handful of fights. Treyson Gore has 3 fights as a professional. I mean, it's just not enough to really put your flag in the ground and say this is what's going to happen. But I do think Treyson Gore gets it done because he is a wrestler. He'll start standing. He'll throw 3 or 4 punches, drop down to the legs, work takedowns against the cage. If he gets it, great. He got a takedown. He'll get some control time. If he doesn't get it, well, he's just going to step back, reset, throw 3 or 4 more, dive back at the legs, and start that process all over again. So I like Gore to ride out a win against Brian Battle. And honestly, he is affordable at $8,300 because the betting line has moved. He started at like a minus 120 favorite, and now on some books, he's all the way up to minus 170. So the betting public has said Treyson Gore is a pretty big favorite. I don't know how you can have that much faith in somebody that has 3 professional fights, but I do still think he wins. And then we have Marc-Andre Barriault versus Chidi Njokuani. And it's a fun fight because Chidi Njokuani's a solid striker with good power, great movement, and great counter striker. Marc-Andre Barriault is a very well-rounded fighter. He's got solid hands, and he can wrestle when he needs to. And what's interesting is I think he needs to wrestle in this fight. He is a solid striker. He likes to strike. He just struck with Lungambula, who's a very dangerous guy, and he got that done and scored pretty well. I don't think he'll have that same success with Chidi Njokuani if he has that same game plan. I do think he needs to wrestle because Njokuani's counter-striking is so good that if Marc-Andre comes charging forward, Njokuani's just going to step to the side, blast him, and could get him in some trouble. Marc-Andre's a tough guy, hasn't been finished before. I don't think he'll get finished here. I do think he wins this fight. I like him at $8,200, and that's because there's a clear path to victory. We've seen Chidi Njokuani outside of the UFC be taken down and beaten up from there. I'm assuming Marc-Andre also has YouTube and Google, realizes that's the very straightforward game plan, and gets it done that way. That's the breakdown, guys. Make sure you tune in on Friday for our final breakdown to account for any changes, anything we saw on the scale, and things like that. And become a member. Click the join button under this video. Become a member of this channel to support us and to qualify for our weekly $50 giveaway. All you need to do is win our free DraftKings League at wewantpicks.com/DraftKings.